Right. So, really want to talk about. I don't know. Let's talk about God. And I know, please, no, don't talk about God. Because it's a complicated. It's a complex. You might think it's simple. Talk about God. Is there one? Is there not one? What should we do if there is one? What should we do if there? So, but it's not simple. No, because in terms of your issues that you may have with the Almighty or about that whole business, um, what do you know? I mean, and what do we ever know? Even me, like, what do I know? Well, I've had lots of experiences. I'm going on 79. I'm just about 78 and a half. So, I have three great grandchildren and so forth and so on, blah blah blah. But if I mean, you belong to a spectrum, and the spectrum is, from zero to whatever, as to how much you're aware of the Almighty, or not aware, or don't think, so point to the point that you're just not sure, and then maybe I don't think there is, zero awareness. I don't know. I mean, I'm not God, so I don't know how much awareness span, but you obviously can see people by their actions that they don't seem to be very aware of anything that has to do with God. Um, in other words, what's going on here? What's the big picture? What's the whole deal? I mean, we have it in our life, don't we? And so we want to have it in our inner. I mean, we want to have, we have this is this and that's that. We're going to do this and this and so forth and so on. But we also want to have the big picture of what we're doing here. What are we doing here on the earth? Well, learn by, by what you experience, so you know what you're doing here on the earth. So you're going through a lot of things. And at some point, you may have some common sense. You may say, "Well, that's above my pay grade. I just do. I'm just a simple man. I do what I do, and I don't need to know about things like that. I mean, I like things I can touch and feel and see and experience, and that's what I'll go on. And that's a common sense point of view. Um, and then in that case, you might have situations where the Almighty makes you aware of something. Now you are aware. You had an experience. Something happened to you, and don't tell me otherwise, because you had it. I mean, you experienced it. You had a near-death experience, or something happened that just was obviously a work of the Almighty, and you just couldn't get around it. Somebody got saved, and so on. So, but it's interesting because in terms of your view on your issues with the Almighty, um, in order to make it simple, we would have to say that there would have to be some kind of thing that was happening in your life that presented evidence of some kind, or might, of something that couldn't quite explain, um, weren't really at peace with it, looking for an answer there. For instance, people who try to step away from the spiritual, say they go into science, and then they spend their whole life trying to figure out how the universe got got to be where it is. And what's all those origin questions. And you think they go mad, but eventually they become quite. They seem to adjust and they adapt, and God, makes you so you can adjust and adapt amazingly to things that you would never think you could. Or one moment you think you're not, but then it's possible, particularly if you can source God. And when I say source God, let me just say you just can't go and say, okay, God, give me this. But you can be open. If you have that connection, you can be open to it, and then God is close to you, and He does come in, which He mostly, almost always does, some form. You recognize it, but it's there. I'm not dreaming. I'm not making things up. I'm just talking. So you would need to know that there was a God. That would help, wouldn't it? You could go over to the house and see the man. That would be, yeah, okay. So now I know where I am. There is a God, and so what do you want me to do? Or what should I do? What? However you want to put it. So it is possible, and not in a really difficult way, or a way you could do it. Anybody can do it. That's the general thing. I'm sure there are people who probably couldn't do it. But, the general person, an average Joe, an average Jane, or Janet, Joe and Janet, let's see, Joe and Janine, they could do it. It's happened to me. Look at me, I'm just an ordinary guy. So, you would need a proof that God existed. And as it turns out, you didn't ask, and maybe you don't want to know, but I'll tell you anyway, that the proof for each person that there is actually a God is adjusted. This God is the most subtle and the most fine and everything else. It's adjusted to that person. So the proof that you get that there is a God will be convincing to you. In other words, God wills for you to know that He is, then you'll know it. Because they say that whatever God wills to be, whatever God wills to be is. He wills it, it is, then it is. And so it's way above our pay grade, isn't it? But in some odd way, in some interesting way, in some subtle way, perhaps, you can understand that. It makes sense to you. If I say to you, God is, that makes sense, doesn't it? So I'm trying to help you to clarify some things in your own way, in your own point of view. So, in terms of God, that's in your feeling. Now, you feel many things, and you feel that they're, and and everybody agrees, most anybody that doesn't think too much, agrees, that you experience things in many ways, and one of the main ways that you experience things is your feeling is on board. You experience it through your feelings. The day feels like this. You feel like this. Your wife feels like this. Your child feels like this. Feel. Lots and lots and lots and lots of things. This feels good. This food tastes good. Well, it tastes good, yeah, but it makes you feel good. And sometimes, if you look at the meal, sometimes just looking at it, you say, this looks good. It feels, in other words, it's a feeling. That's good. So, um, God loves you, and so everything is done in a loving way. And so, you're the same with your kids. They may not realize it, but you, you, um, you love them, and so most, 90% of the time, maybe 99%, maybe I don't want to say 100%, but as much as you possibly can, you try to deal with them in a loving way. You try not to get angry and get upset and be unloving because you love them. You do. You have a feeling of love for them, and their feeling for you is just unfathomable. I mean, it's just like there's no filter. They just come to you. I mean, it's just an act. I mean, it's just, and it's kind of unfathomable how they come up to you, but you accept it. It's acceptable. It's nice to be needed. It's nice to have some creature um, need you, you know, or you can tell that's the reality. They need you. They come to you. They want you to hold them. They need you to hold them. Then they feel better. And so much more so God. But so coming back to the issue that you may have, so you need a proof. But in order to get a proof, let's try to get down to the root of things. In order to get a proof, you have to, well, you can get a proof just out of the blue. Sure, it can happen, it happens. People get zapped, wham, right out of the blue, there they get their proof. But in the everyday course of things, in order to get a proof, you would have to, um, experience. You would have to be open. You would have to have that gate open. You would have to be willing. You would have to be looking for, perhaps, looking for something. Looking for the proof. Looking for or wanting to have a proof. Or some kind of thing in there where you care. So you're willing to make efforts. So, in the latest gift that God has given man that I know about, it's pretty recent, just the last 1930 came in around 32, I think. The Almighty gave permission to a person here to pass this gift out in contact with the power of God. If you had received that contact, then after a period of time, maybe a year or so, I speak from experience, you would, as the person who brought it, who was a messenger, or who was a, like, you call whatever, your doctor or whatever you want, person who knew a lot about this and understood things and was ready to do this task with the Almighty, sent here to do that. Said that you would get it proved. Now, a person that knows what they're talking about, when they say things, it needs to come true, doesn't it? You said this would happen, and sure enough, it did happen. So that builds confidence in that person. So he said you'd have a proof. Sure enough, I had a proof. And the proof I had was as follows. I was walking around a room with a bunch of other men. We were all, we all had this contact with the power of God. And so what that meant was we would just get together a couple times every week for half an hour We would stand quietly and we wouldn't really think about anything, and we would wait until we were moved from within. And that movement would take many different, address many different things in this human system, feelings, um, um, physically, your body, make you move. And it was a very nice movement too. It wasn't something that you felt, oh my God, who's moving me? It was like, oh, I'm moving, I'm flowing, I'm going. So you would start walking, and you would start, things would come out of your mouth. You would be moved, made to speak, say things, whoa, bang, Allah, whatever would come. And sometimes some, beautiful songs and various other things. I don't want to make all songs sort of grunge thing, but so one day I was walking around the room, going along quite well. I was being moved. I was walking. I don't remember if I was saying anything. Probably was, speaking as I walked. Oh yeah, like a dance, something. And a voice came over my right shoulder. I couldn't, I didn't see it, but I was aware of it. Boom! It was like, it said, it was a voice with authority. It had authority. There was no, it was the same. And it said, without the power of God, you have no power. And I immediately found myself, and then as it said that, and then I experienced myself, I just kind of I stopped, and I kind of crumpled up down on the floor, fell down on the floor, not in a hard way, but it's a big, big, huge room, big floor we had. And I found that I couldn't get the next moment. Life unfolds, as we say, and if you really are quiet, you look at it, you'll see, pay attention, you'll see, it keeps coming along. But it just wouldn't come. And I didn't feel like paralyzed. Like that. It wasn't like that. There was no paralyzed thing. It was just a kind of, the next moment just wouldn't come. And I couldn't move. No, there was nothing to move me, because the next moment of life, or whatever you want to call it, just wasn't coming. But I was still conscious. And it was a strange place to be in as a human, as a human being, or aspiring to be. And this went on for a couple of minutes. I was kind of curled up on the floor there. Wasn't in pain. Wasn't freaking out. But, wasn't particularly, I didn't have time to panic. It just went on for a while, a minute or so. Then, somehow, without my kind of noticing, then all of a sudden I was, oh, yeah, I can move again. And I was moved, I got up, and I was, kept on, and was able to get up and keep walking and carrying on. But, after that, when that session was over, half an hour, and go back to just being in a normal, in our normal thing. We were using our hearts. We were using whatever we have. And we use it and say, how are you doing? And let's go get some coffee and all that kind of thing. Why, I had a new perspective. It changed. It was transformative, because I realized that there was a God, and that without the power of God, I couldn't do anything. So I understood that just being and existing from moment to moment depended on the power of God. As Christ said, man is not lived by bread alone, but by the word of God. So he's talking about the same thing I'm talking about. You can call it the word. I'm not talking, but it's like boom, boom, boom. Life keeps going on. So then, you can have the same experience if you want it. So then, in order to have that experience, coming back to issues that you might have with the Almighty, you have to have some kind of a feeling. In order to get to that place, I was seeking, and I couldn't find anything. I did this and this and this. And the Christian Bible, I didn't read the Quran. I don't think I read the Quran at that point. But, the main thing in our Western culture, in California, of course, was the Christian, the words of Christ. And I couldn't, my mind was very strong. I couldn't wrap my head around it. And of course, I really wasn't supposed to, but I didn't know that at the time, so I would try to do that, and I said, well, I don't know. So then, but my common sense told me, as perhaps your common sense says, so this can't just all have happened by some sort of. I mean, what is it? It has to come from somewhere, and if you start really looking at it, it has to come from, so far as we're sentient, we can tell it has to come from some being. It has to have been created. It has to have occurred by some aegis. So, something has to be. I can't think of the word because I'm getting old. Something has to be the thing that's prime. And so, when I found this group, they told me, well, they kind of get high. They didn't tell me this, but the person who was reporting it said they kind of get high, but they don't take any drugs or anything. And I thought, well, that's very interesting. How do they do that? And it was all kind of vague, but I was interested. I found myself. See, then I got help from the Almighty because I found myself. I was interested. When it would come up, I wouldn't just brush it off. I'd say, yeah, I want to find out about that. And the guy wouldn't let me tell me where it was, and so finally I found, I pressed him and I found it where it was, and I went down there myself. He was going to check it out first, but I said, no, I'll go look for myself. So if you're searching, then you know what I'm talking. If you're seeking, then it can resonate with what I'm telling you. So if you're seeking, there you go. You found it. I spent years looking around at yoga and this and that and Zen in the '60s. I was going to Berkeley and Reed College. It was all the rage. And it's fascinating stuff too. But a couple of big authors there. Can't think of the guy's name, but he wrote Gus Perlinspiel and those kind of things. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff. But when I did come across the real thing, I wasn't directing my attention to trying to find it myself. Somebody just came and said, "You heard about this thing." So it was by word of mouth. So once you have a proof that God exists, then of course if you have any sort of sanity at all, then that changes everything because you know there's a God, and then you gotta immediately you gotta ask yourself the question, well, now what? What am I supposed to do? You can ask a lot of questions. They say that in heaven there are no questions and no doubts. And that makes makes a lot of sense. You just go on about your business, but then a couple times a week, you get together with the guys, and the women get together with the women in separate rooms, and they just relax, and kind of relax and calm themselves down and wait, patient until they're moved from within. Something moves them that is, not their own movement. If I move my arm, I take my arm and I move it. That's me moving my arm. Now, if I put my arm up here and I wait for it to be moved, that's a different matter. It takes, it's from a different place. That kind of thing. You let that happen. And you just have to, it's an experiment, isn't it? You try to see where, and you observe it. You eat the candy 50 times. How do you feel now after 50 times? How did you feel after, it's a science. You could say it's a kind of what they like to call science. Science is just, it's just a descriptive word. It means that you're looking into something, how you look into it, what criteria you have. So, that was 50 years ago, or 55 years ago now, and time just flies. So, I'm happy to report that it actually was a contact. It is a contact. That unknowable thing. It's a marvelous thing. It's been absolutely marvelous, absolutely transformative. So, for my part, I can say, without question, there is a God, and God loves you, and God has come to the earth in His power. Not God moved. And on that question, if you want to think about it for a second, what, because if everything was created, then one of the things that had to be created was form. Now, the one that created the form would then would be beyond form. So that one you wouldn't expect that one would take a form, trapped into something lesser. So anyhow, it's been a great journey. It's exciting. It's exciting even right now when I'm talking to you. What will I say, and where will this go, and stuff like that. So, just coming back to the very beginning of things, you need to have some kind of direction within your being, within your own who you are, that is kind of nudging you towards finding you want to know. It's not enough for you to know, that you're here. You want to know. You want to know more about it. We'd like to expand our knowledge. Knowledge is the best thing, isn't it? So I'm here to tell you there is a God, and I'm not expecting you to just believe it. I'm saying I'm remind you, I'm giving you a way to find that. Have your own proof. Thing. I could tell you a story about a guy in Indonesia. His friends brought him into this group. It's called Subu. It's a worldwide organization. They don't advertise it, but they do. There is word of mouth. That's kind of what I'm doing with you. Word of mouth. This guy was an atheist. Didn't believe there was a God. And so, but he was willing to see what this was all about. He was willing to be open-minded. And it has been said by the guy who brought this gift, God wills for man to be open-minded and open-hearted. So, if you're not open-minded, maybe you should search within yourself to see how that happened. If you're not open-hearted, you should do that as well, because you need to be open-minded and open-hearted. So this guy, even though he didn't believe, and by the way, belief is not the thing here. It's not about believing. It's about having the experience, learning through experience. Eat the candy, what does it do to you? Ride the horse. Build a building. Now you have experienced it. You know about it in real direct ways. What works, what doesn't work. And you can imagine that you can hit a nail really well, but then no. And you have to, but it does. After a while, you're amazed at your own self. You can actually be looking away and hitting the nail, and it goes right in. It takes a while. You never get there. But being a carpenter, I can tell you, I got to where I can run nails pretty good. Anyhow, so this guy, they're over there, and they had elephants in that area. And he was out on some kind of a safari or some kind of thing with his boss. I don't know, they were looking at the plantation or what, and they were attacked by some elephant had gotten enraged, or maybe it was more than one, maybe one elephant in the story had gotten enraged, and he was rearing up, and he was attacking, because the boss was right there, so he was like attacking the boss. And this guy was, right in front of him, this Subaru member. And he looked up into the eyes of the elephant. The elephant was looking at him, and something happened. Something happened. The elephant came back to the ground and walked off. This is a real event. And so the man who had been the atheist, this was his proof. I don't know what he saw or what he felt. There was a result. You can look at the result. It was a good result from our point of view. He saved his boss or whatever, or he was the instrument used. And but for him, this was his proof. It was a real proof in a moment of real reality, dynamic, threatening reality. There was God. And there are many proofs. Unfortunately, I don't know too many others. I mean, I've heard people tell me stories. I can't remember them at the moment. Anything particular coming to mind. But I can say you get your own proof. Wouldn't that be something? Then you could know. Once you know, then once you know there's a God, then we can talk about God a little bit. But it's all good. It's all stuff that if you would really think about it, if you would want to submit to the Almighty and let God, so that God could work on you, restore you to being a real human being, because you're damaged. And by damaged, what I mean is that there are certain things in your inner workings that don't work anymore. There are certain feelings that you had when you were young and innocent that have gotten dirtied up. You don't have them. You might remember them from time to time, but you don't really have those feelings anymore. Things have changed even in your spirit. Um, and of course, you might, if you don't really look at it head on, you might think, well, the way I am, that's all I need to do. I can walk and talk, and I know how to build computers, so I'm set. But there's a lot more to life than building computers and walking and talking. And as time goes by, you will most likely realize that there's so many things that a human being does, and it becomes, it's easy to kind of just think it's part of all and everything, and not really pay that much attention. But if you do pay attention, then you'll see the wonder of it, the things that a human being can feel and experience and come to and be enlightened by, and so forth and so on. That gift is there for mankind, um, and but it requires effort. Um, the effort is, I mean, when you're doing the exercise, there's no effort required on your part except just to have the discipline to be patient and wait until you're moved. That's important that you wait until you're moved. You don't make things up. I remember the first time I had a movement, I had gone and they had opened me, or they had given, that's what they call it, give me this contact. They do it by they stand in front of you and they say, well, guys do it for men and women do it for women. Somebody, one of the people that's already gotten this contact, who got it from the first guy, says, we bear witness to your wish to worship the one Almighty God, your sincere wish. Therefore, close your eyes, relax. Don't do anything, and wait until you are moved within. And when you are moved within, follow it freely. In other words, let God work. So I had done that, and nothing much happened. After a while, there were a bunch of people running around, guys, running around the room, yelling, moaning, screaming, and pounding on the floor, and just walking, just being normal, all kinds of different things. I had my eyes closed. I wasn't really paying attention. I was paying attention was something happening to me, and I couldn't really catch much of it. I ended up kind of getting tired of standing there. I think I got tired and lay down on the floor. But when I was walking home, and then after it was over, I thought, well, did I get high? Because I want to see what this is about getting high. And I didn't particularly feel high or anything, so regular and my normal condition. But when I was walking home, I felt kind of a refreshing in my feelings. I felt like I was back in high school. I'd kind of forgotten how I felt when I was in high school. Now I was in college. I was 22. I was going to college, and it's kind of like I felt those feelings that I had felt then. But it wasn't anything you could be like certain about. I mean, you would say, okay, I'm good. Yeah, this is real. And I was kind of like, well, that was interesting. I did taste something. I did feel something. So I went on like this. I was very determined. This is my point. It has to be real. It can't be something you imagine or you think something happened, or you wanted something to happen. Say, I think it. No, it has to be real. First time you ever get up on a regular-sized horse, you have an experience, which is, wow, this thing is big. Experience it. That's a big horse. You might not be thinking it. You're having that experience. There you are up on top of that horse. Wow. It has to be something real. So this went on for, I think it was, I don't know, 6 or 7 times, something like that. I went down there. Twice a week they did, Monday and Thursday night at 9 o'clock. Come in a little early, take off your shoes. There's in a kind of a little dance studio they had in Berkeley there. Some light, not too much. And, lights are on, dimish, and you just stand there and wait until you're moved. We did it all together. So this went on for about the 6th or 7th time that I did it. Nothing much was happening, and still waiting. I was sitting on the floor, my legs kind of crossed some yoga position. I kind of like to be like my legs crossed like that. I don't know. I was sitting there. It was about maybe halfway through the 30 minutes, and I felt this, my head moved. Then it moved, back the other way, and then it started moving, whoa, back and forth. And it was a very nice, gentle sort of feeling, pleasant. It was a pleasant feeling. I was just moved my head from side to side. So I noticed it, after the first movement or so. I thought, wait a minute, something's happening here. So continued back and forth. And so then I thought, okay, so wait a minute. So I started thinking, so I stopped paying attention to if I was being moved, and I just stopped. And as soon as I stopped paying attention and said, okay, stop. And as soon as I would let go again, it would come back and forth, very nice, very pleasant. I never felt anything like that before in my life, but that was real. It was a real thing. I tested, I checked it a few times, not overly so. I was, an idiot. After 2 or 3 times, I said, okay, well, let's see where that goes. And so, where it went was that I started being moved, and then it went to my arms and my legs, and first thing I was walking around the room, and then I was being moved to say things, to run, and to spin, and to feel things and experience things, and it just went on and on. It's still going on. And in all those years, I can say that there's never been a movement that was harmful to me or that hurt me or that I wasn't happy to have. I look forward to being moved. When you're being moved, you got no cares and no worries. You're just being moved. And maybe you do have cares and worries and they're still there, but mostly not. You're just kind of being moved and it's all very free and you have to care and you're moved to dance, to make sounds and the sounds kind of things coming out of you, blah, 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 and stuff in your feelings and happy things and things about the Almighty. And eventually it goes on. You're taught how to walk when you're being moved to walk, how to speak when you're being moved to speak. So, it has to be real. It's available to you. It doesn't cost anything. You don't have to swear an oath or take up a doctrine. There's no doctrine, there are no rules. Just, calm down. And, as T.S. Eliot famously said, in the cocktail party, he said, well, if you don't know what to do nothing. And that's what you do. So the thing is, if you're not really sure about God, then you don't really know what to do you? Because if there's a God, then you'll act one way, and if there isn't, then you'll run around trying to stay alive and figure out how the world was made, and figure out how to get out of here and go out into space, and all kinds of strange things, that make sense to you. If you know there's a God, why? and you're experiencing that, in your life, then, you're gonna go with that. That's the best thing. So you go with God and just allow God to work. Open to God. So if I say you want to have that experience, I'm just an ordinary person. I wasn't anything special. I mean, we all have wonderful things in us and things that aren't so wonderful. I'm just a regular guy. I experienced it. I highly recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. Transform you, bring you back to a point where you're in pretty good shape in your being, so that when you go back to the other side, things will go well there, and they also go well here. As you kind of know when you get inner knowledge and inner awareness comes to you, so that you don't say the wrong thing and you don't do the wrong thing, and your life becomes more useful to other people because you're doing good stuff and guided by God. You follow your good character and not your bad character. Everything's getting put into place, and eventually, not sooner, you can, get to understand that you become more noble, or more real, more. You become more you, so you become a better version of you. So you like what happens. You don't really become someone else. You don't become someone else. And I should probably mention that when you die, and that experience leaving the earth, you don't change into somebody else. You remain you. Okay, I think that's about enough of that. Okay, God bless. I hope you found that interesting and that you will take up finding a way to get this gift. I don't go on and on about it because nobody ever does. Nobody ever wants this. I've never had anybody in any of these videos, I've made quite a few, ever write to me and say, gosh, yeah, gee, I wanted this. In fact, I've met very few people that wanted it. I did open a woman, but I did open a woman. She heard about it, said, great, that sounds great, I want it. And so she got a good experience from that. She started developing and getting a good result. But anyway, it's available to you. I don't know. It's up to you if you want to square off with yourself and see if you think you should try something that's being offered to you or not. That's it. Okay, all right. So God bless. As I say, just to sum up, issues with God kind of depend on what your experience has been with God. If you don't have that experience and you want to have an experience with God, this is a way for you to have that experience with God, and then you can go from there. It's based on experience, not on belief. Not going to believe in that way. That's a retarded way. Believing, the word believing, used to mean, originally it meant, like you, yeah, I agree, I think so, I think this is right, I believe in this thing, I believe in this project. It doesn't mean mentally you think, yes, I will choose to believe. No, it's nothing like that. It's an experience, a real experience. Okay, there you go.